welcome or welcome back to my channel, Life of Jay. So today's topic is going to be grief. So let me give the disclaimer that I'm not a licensed counselor. I am speaking mostly from a personal experience with grief and mourning and loss. And so we're going to get started. So first, let's define grief. Grief is a deep sorrow. It is also a natural response to loss, particularly to the loss of someone or some living thing that has died, to which we had a bond or affection. Typically, when we think of loss, we think of the emotional response to loss, but grief also has physical, cognitive, behavioral, social, cultural, spiritual, and philosophical dimensions. So grief can affect our bodies in different ways. It increases inflammation. It can also increase blood pressure and the risk of blood clots. How do you know if you're grieving? Sometimes you may have a tough time concentrating or focusing on simple tasks. You may sleep more or not able to sleep at night. We don't only grieve the loss of someone's life. We also grieve the loss of a job, relationship, friendship, someone moving. Mourning, when we consider mourning can last for months or even years for some. So for me, the reason why I wanted to upload this video in this time is because I have personally experienced the loss of a close friend and also a relative earlier in the year. So February, March time. So within a 2-week period. So I've lost loved ones and not friends, but, classmates and things like that over the years. But these two hit home a little different. And I'll speak a little bit later about a loss from like 20 plus years ago. And so with the passing of first my friend and then my uncle, and within the 2-week period, it was tough. The first thing that I experienced for the first time when discussing loss and grief and mourning was guilt. And I did not realize that that was a common response. In reading something or watching something, I was informed that that is a common response. So my guilt was centered around, like, how can I do like my day-to-day stuff, knowing that these people don't have the opportunity to do the things that they intended to do. So I began to feel guilty for living, guilty for still being alive. And so it took a while to kind of deal with that. And then even now, I felt and feel guilty for mourning more of the loss of my friend than my relative. That was something that I still don't necessarily get. Maybe it's because she was younger. Maybe it's because we were closer, maybe. I don't know. I don't know the reasoning for that. But it is something that I feel, and so it is valid for me. And so I don't really try to focus on why that is. I just accept it for what it is and learn to properly grieve both of these losses. And so the reason, again, why I wanted to do this video now is because the last couple of days I've had some moments. And so I've typically had moments over these last few months. Let's see, May, June, July, August, September, about 4 months. I guess I felt like it had been longer, but it hasn't. And I have moments. And so the last 2 days I've had those moments. With my uncle's passing, unlike any other loss of a loved one, we had him cremated. So his ashes, some of his cremains are here in my home. And so I'm able to kind of like say hi to him, or kind of that deal. And so that's different for me. Typically in my family, we bury, those that pass due to certain circumstances. We decided to cremate him instead. So it's kind of I guess I can look at it as a positive or a negative. We do have a place that we consider like the memorial site for where he passed. And so we're able to go there and kind of, pay our respects as you would in a cemetery. So most of my loved ones that wanted to, they have some form of his cremains. And so that is something special that you don't necessarily get when you choose a burial. So yeah, that's that. Let's see where we at in my notes. So again, that guilt was very tough for me. But the hope, that in recording this video is that it will allow you or someone that you know to understand and know that you're not the only person experiencing grief. You're not the only person mourning the loss of someone that you loved. You're not the only person experiencing the feelings that you and the emotions that you experience. It is okay. It is normal, and we'll get through it. And so again, around that grief, I had a guilt of moving on, like with my life. Like how like the nerve of me to go on with my life knowing that this person doesn't have that ability. But when I look at it now, months later, the nerve of me not to continue my life when God has given me the ability to live. And so I can look at it from either perspective, and I choose to focus more on the positive and the fact and the blessing that I have more time. And so, yeah. So for me, how I deal with grief is going to look a lot differently than most people or some other people, and that's okay. We're all different. We're all unique. And so for me, crying is therapeutic. It always has been. I will cry, and then it'll get better. So I can encourage you. I would like to encourage you to cry, but some people aren't comfortable with that for many reasons. And so I encourage you to do whatever you feel necessary, whatever's healthy. We know there's always healthy responses to different things in life, different circumstances, and then there's also unhealthy ones that we won't speak of today. So for me, this particular cry that I experienced during this time of loss was unlike anything that I had experienced. It was a cry of heartbreak. And I guess when I think about the loss of a relationship too, I remember experiencing across something similar. And so I cried for weeks. I didn't think it was going to end. And it was rough. It was very rough. But we're through that stage. And so when we talk about the stages of grief, I was doing a little bit of research, and different articles will say different things. I saw up to 15 stages of grief. The 5 that I think are most common are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And so denial, I think we're in shock when a person first passes. And I remember even now, I feel like with my friend passing and also with my uncle, I think one of the reasons why I experienced a different level of grief or loss with them was that my uncle, I wasn't in communication with him due to his addiction. And so I had kind of separated myself from him and accepted his active addiction again, and accepted the fact and the reality that it would soon come to an end. Although he was an addict for most of my life, I would say over 30 years, this time was a little different. And I knew that if he continued on the path that he was on, that it wouldn't likely lead to life. And so I had began the process of accepting that. And so I think that may be one of the reasons why. Not really sure. I still don't think I'm going to ever figure that out. So, when we think about denial as it relates to grief, it doesn't seem real. And I want to call. I want to call my friend. I want to call her. Some people still do call. I'm going to try to keep it together too. Some people still do call. I was watching Teen Mom, I think it was Teen Mom 2 or whatever the other one is. I don't know. And the young lady, her mom passed away, I believe, from cancer a while ago. And she still calls her mom. She called her mom. She packed up her kids and she relocated to Florida. I think it was Florida. And she called her mom as they were driving and basically just gave her an update on where they were, what they were doing, what she was doing. So if that's what you need to do, do it. Now, if that person, someone is taking over that phone number or something like that, maybe not. But, text this particular person. She left a voicemail and, gave her life updates. So it's a part of her healing. And so we got to do what we got to do as individuals. Everyone doesn't grieve the same. And sometimes I feel like we look at grief and we're like, oh, well, how do they move on so quick? Or why aren't they this way? Or why aren't they that way? Everyone grieves differently. Everyone experiences life situations differently. We're all built differently. We're all shaped differently. We're all created differently. So it's not on us to pass judgment on the way that a person grieves and experiences loss. Because again, your relationship with that individual is unique, the person that passed. And so you're going to grieve differently. So let's talk a little bit about counseling. I am an advocate for counseling. Everyone does not agree with that, and that is okay. I remember when my grandmother passed away 26 years ago now. It was the first day of my 7th grade year. She had terminal cancer, so unlike the other losses that I spoke of earlier in the year, this was expected. She was currently receiving hospice care prior to passing, and I remember attending like a grief counseling or some type of support group at hospice when she passed. I don't recall all the details, but I remember attending. And, it was 26 years later. She passed away in 1995, and I miss her dearly. And when I think about the stages of grief, I don't know where I am in those stages of grief. In mourning. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, mourning can last months and up to years. This is 26 years later, and I miss her. I remember her, and I grieve and mourn her loss. I believe that as we consider the lives of the ones that we've lost, that the most honorable thing that we can do is, in honor of their passing, is live our life to the fullest and in a manner that we deem appropriate. And their living is not in vain. And so let's focus on the moments that were good. Let's focus on the memories that were great. Let's focus on the things that they shared, they instilled in us, and the experiences that we had with them. And let's live our lives to the fullest. Every day that we have, every moment, every second that we have is a gift. And it's up to us to live it to the best of our ability. So let's continue the conversation around grief and mourning in hopes of assisting and encouraging others as they continue or embark on this new journey of losing someone that they love. It is okay to not be okay, but we don't want to slip into depression. So it is important that we seek counseling if we feel it's appropriate, and we identify appropriate support systems in our lives that we can be honest with and that we feel have our best interests in mind, that we can share how we're, feeling honestly and not feel like we're judged, and continue the conversation, like journal, whatever your coping skills are, this is the time to implement those coping skills. Journaling, being able to get those thoughts out. Like I said, if you need to call that person, text that person, leave a voicemail, send them an email. It won't necessarily hurt unless there's someone else on the other end. And maybe you can reach out to them and say, hey, this is the phone number of a loved one that I lost. Is it okay if I XYZ? Maybe you can just write it down. Maybe you can do a voice recording, whatever. Maybe you can write a song, like rap, whatever, dance, whatever you want to do, whatever that is honorable for the loved one that you lost. That's what we need to do. And again, accepting and appreciating the moments that we still have here. This moment in this time is a gift, and 1 second later, it will be the past. So let's focus on the present. Let's look towards our future, and let's continue to love and honor those that have went on before us. Thank you again for watching. This video was a bit emotional, but I kept it together for the most part, and it's something that I believe is helpful for me. Like I said, the last couple of days have been a bit tough. I've had my moments, but I'm going to continue to work through those moments. They're not going to go away. It is okay to not be okay. It is okay for me to cry. It is okay for me to grieve. It is okay for me to mourn, and I'm going to continue to do that until I don't know when. So again, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, comments, anything like that. If you want to share your experience with grief, please by all means comment. If you want to suggest any future video topics, please feel free to do that as well. I really appreciate you watching, and I hope that this video was helpful to you or someone else that you know, and that we can continue the conversation as we assist and encourage our loved ones and our friends and people that we encounter on embarking on the journey of grief and mourning. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.